The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
What's up, Cam? You accepted the speaker request, bro?
Damn right I did. We the number one team in the world, and you worried about the fucking Lakers. They the worst team in the West.
Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, before this week started, I asked you what you thought the Suns could do this week, and you said, I think they could go 4-0. This was last week, I should say. And they did. Lo and behold, they did. They went 4-0 in a week that included essentially three contenders in the Eastern Conference. First of all, great job on that prediction. And second of all, how are you doing?
This is why people shouldn't doubt me. I've never let the people down before, and I never will again. With that being said, are you ready for a mailbag?
I am ready. We have a ton to get to. Hopefully we'll get to some of those games. I guess we'll just quickly say we haven't recorded since the Milwaukee game. We should at least acknowledge the Suns beat Milwaukee in their first game since the NBA Finals in I guess what could be considered a statement victory. I'm not sure that those exist necessarily in my mind, but it did feel like the Suns saying we're better this year, and maybe the Bucks aren't. I'm not sure if they are or not. We'll see what the playoffs actually determines, but that was a pretty fun game, right?
Yeah, it was a very fun game. And look, the Bucks will be back and in a better form. First of all, the game was in Phoenix, but also Bucks fans seem tepidly excited about Serge Ibaka, I guess one could say. Obviously, they're have some hopes tied to him, and then also Brook Lopez, his health up in the air, but they can never get him back. So look, the Bucks will be a different team the next time the Suns play them. But I think the absence of Lopez was absolutely felt in that game. I think the absence of PJ Tucker was absolutely felt in that game, and that's something that they didn't even try to address at the deadline. It's something that they've been missing all season long, which, if you ask me, has been rather obvious when you look at their roster. So the Bucks are a very good team. I think they could give the Suns a hell of a series if it actually were to be a rematch, but these are different teams from last year, and I think the Suns proved that for sure.
I don't want to be the person that overreacts to a single game, but I'll be honest, I am kind of overreacting to that. In that, I feel more confident now than before that game. So I guess you could say that's a slight overreaction. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, because the Bucks still have the opportunity to get healthier by the end of the year. But, Pat Connaughton broke his hand in that game. They traded Dante DiVincenzo.
Yes.
Their biggest thing, I think, at this point is, can they pair another big man who's able to effectively protect the rim and shoot from the outside? Because that type of lineup, it does hurt. It hurts the Suns because it makes it more difficult to get offensive rebounds. They kill us on the defensive boards, and Giannis has all that space if he wants to drive to the rim. So, we'll see what it is by the end of the year, but I just wanted to quickly talk about that before we got to these questions. You got anything else about that game?
No, not about that one. I think I would say we could talk about Craig and Holiday's debut against the Magic also, because we haven't recorded since then. They played really well. Or like, if you want to just dive into the questions, and I'm sure we'll talk about them at some point.
Yeah, hopefully they'll probably come up. There's a bunch of them. Here's what I'll say. I think as of right now we got 78 questions.
Yeah,
on
it's
our
not happening, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We used to do every single question to the point where I think one time we recorded with David for 3 hours. We can't do that now. People don't want 3-hour podcasts. We'll do an extra one this week at some point. Maybe actually, Sam, we'll just do some of the other questions we didn't get to in our Patreon one. But what I'm going to do is just read these questions in the order that Twitter is displaying them to me. So blame the algorithm if your question doesn't get answered in this. And if we end up answering a stupid question because of the way that Twitter organized it, blame the person who asked it. I guess it's the best way to put it. But we'll try to get to as many as we can in the time that we normally record, which is approximately an hour.
Let's do it.
Okay. First question. This is from Sean42AZ. Secret Wars and Beyond podcast is the name of his Twitter account. He said, are the Suns better off starting Cameron Johnson at the 4 and bringing Crowder off the bench? I love Crowder, but he shoots a lot of threes. that would be better served going to Cameron Johnson? Which I think we've clearly answered this question before, Sam.
It's one of the classic questions that come up again and again about this team. It's one of the defining questions at this point, I would say.
But I think this is an interesting time to ask it because Jay Crowder is in a slump, at least from the 3-point line. Because you can make the case he's doing a lot of things better than he was before. Driving the ball, shooting at the rim, clearly rebounding. He's basically the second best rebounder on the Suns in the last few games that he's played. I am still of the firm belief that Jay Crowder fits better in the starting lineup. Cameron Johnson has clearly made a case to get more and more minutes. But what do you think? Where are you? In the same place we were before, or has it changed at all?
I'm in the same place we were before, and I think this is one where you can kind of just look at the results. Jay Crowder, since returning from his wrist injury, and that's been about 7 or 8 games now, is shooting 21% from deep. The Suns have won. Obviously, this was not all with Crowder, but they've won regardless. 5 straight and 16 of their last 17 or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think this is a formula you want to mess with. I think Crowder's rebounding, his defense, everything else he's brought to the table. You mentioned the floaters, obviously, has become self-evident at this point in the season. And yes, Cam Johnson should continue to get his 25, 30 minutes per game. But, I understand why people keep asking this question. I just think if you're asking this question at what I expect to be the absolute lowest point of Jay Crowder's season, and the team is still just winning games left and right, he's going to eventually get back to 35% three-point shooting, and no one's going to care anymore. I do believe that.
I almost think that this is a question that makes me feel like I need to do a better job highlighting the things that Jay Crowder is good at. I've been away from home watching a lot of these games recently, so I haven't been in my normal setup where I can very easily take clips and show them online.
No back scratcher within arm's
no
arm's
back
length.
Scratcher within arm's length. Yeah. No automatic DVR that I could rewind within seconds. I am actually in a hotel room recording this right now. Full disclosure, I guess. But,
undisclosed American bunker location.
Yeah, exactly. I've done a lot of podcasts in hotels this year, but in the future, I'd like to do a better job of just highlighting some of the things that Jay Crowder does on defense, because I think though his defensive IQ is truly elite level IQ. And look, he's not the biggest guy. I mean, he's very big, but he's not a center clearly, and he doesn't have the athleticism of the best athletes in the NBA. But the brain is there. It's definitely there. And look, even still, I still say this. I like that he shoots those shots, even if they're not going in at this time. At some point, they will, and I think it'll even out. But yeah, that's Jay Crowder. I understand why people are frustrated. It's a little frustrating to watch when he misses 5-6 threes in a row, but gets 14 rebounds. So a give and a take. But I do want to talk more about Cameron Johnson, which works because the second question that I have here is directly related to him. And he says, this is from Long John Sliver, at Long John SLVR85.
It's Sliver, not Silver?
It's Sliver. Yeah, you're making me feel dyslexic here, but it does say Sliver. He says, every pod refuses to answer this question, which makes me feel like we're tackling something here that other people are afraid to answer, I guess. But I think Cam Johnson will be better than Mikal in a couple years. What do you think? And I'll let you go first on that. I know how I feel. These two have had an interesting week going on ESPN, making a bet about the Super Bowl. Mikal Bridges winning the bet. Now Cameron Johnson has to set up a lemonade stand in the summer. These guys are known as twins. In fact, David, I haven't read it yet. David just wrote about them. I'm excited to read that.
It's very good. You should.
Who do you think will be better?
So this is a funny question because this is definitely one we've addressed in the past as well. But I think the last time we addressed this was probably preseason, when I would have said, I remember saying during our internal development series, no way is Cam Johnson, I was like, no way does he have the same potential as Mikal Bridges. I like him, but no way is he the same. And now if you actually look at this season, I still believe that Mikal Bridges has more potential, but it's certainly a lot closer, to the point where if you look at certain advanced stats, Cam Johnson, I think, has a higher VORP than Mikal Bridges this season. Take that for what it's worth. His offensive value has been obvious. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't see the same exact kind of self-creation capabilities offensively for Cam, nor do I see his ability straight up just to anchor the defense like Mikal does every night and take the best assignment. So for those reasons, I still think Mikal is that guy going forward. I also should push back on this question a little bit. Not that it's not a good question, but just, not that it's always necessary to compare the two guys. You have two very good players here. Mm-hmm. It's not always necessary to compare them against each other. But if you forced me to give an answer here, I would still say Mikal's probably that guy going forward. Cam's going to make a lot of money on his extension, but
hopefully with the Suns, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully with the Suns.
I don't. Him, yeah.
I mean, look, I view him as a volume shooter who's not afraid to attack the rim, and who's not, but he's not going to start spamming pick and rolls. He's not going to be a 20-point per game guy, in my opinion. That's just not my view of who Cam Johnson is in his future. He's going to be a really, really solid, potentially high-end starter. But so is Mikal. So there you are.
Mikal Bridges' last 10 games, and I'm trying not to cherry pick here. I just did last 10 games. 18.4 points per game, 2.6 assists, 0.7 turnovers, 4.9 total rebounds, and that's 61% field goal percentage. So a couple of things about this. I think that this is a fair question to ask at this point, but I do think it undersells just how good he is at defense. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA. I think a handful. As far as wing defenders, he's top 3 probably wing defenders in the NBA. At times, the best wing defender in the NBA. That alone, I think, puts him in an elite tier of defensive players. Now, if you're talking about offensively, I also think that the variety of types of shots that Mikal Bridges is capable of hitting is important for his overall ceiling as a player. Because I think what the main difference will be between these two players, assuming we see their absolute peaks offensively, is the ability to create for themselves. And Cameron Johnson is essentially a top-level off-the-ball player. His movement and able to find the passing lanes and be available to accept that pass and take the three-point shot, top tier. Top tier. We've seen players like Klay Thompson is like the best at it ever, and of course, Steph Curry. Cameron Johnson's up there as one of the best players in the NBA at relocation and just keeping himself available to hit open shots. He can also attack closeouts and get to the rim, but that's essentially all he does. Now, is he capable of hitting mid-range shots? Yes. Have we seen a lot of it? Not really, and maybe that's a coaching thing, truthfully, because he's the best three-point shooter on the team, so you want him taking as many of those as possible, and he's capable of jamming on you. So that is what it is. But I think that just from the sample sizes that we've seen of these two players, I think the variety of types of shots that Mikal Bridges is capable of hitting is important as far as projecting their overall ceilings as a player. If you can create from the mid-range, if you can create from the three-point line, which he's actually a pretty good pull-up three-point shooter in Mikal Bridges, that's going to be really important. Now, both of these guys are hampered by their inability to handle the ball at an elite level at this point. So I think maybe the ceiling offensively is just based on who ends up getting better at handling the ball at this point. But I do think just in general, we have to really factor in that Mikal Bridges is like an otherworldly defender and Cameron Johnson's a good defender. I think there's a big gap there defensively. Sure. And the offensive gap is, I think, smaller than some people realize. For sure. Yep. So I still say Mikal, but I think it's a fair question to ask. Yep. Okay. Stephen Freeman at Stevie PF22 says Suns won't play either team unless it's the NBA Finals, but given the updated rosters, do you wish the Suns had one more crack at either of the Sixers or the Nets in the regular season? And if so, which team would you rather see one more time? And he's saying it seems like in the regular season. This is a good question. I think we haven't really talked a lot about these teams because we haven't really seen them play yet. We briefly touched on it on our trade reaction podcast, but what do you think about that? Sixers or Nets?
Yeah, we did just talk about these teams. I know it's for like 10 minutes, but
we haven't seen them though,
No, I know. I don't really have a desire to play either of those teams one more time. I will say, to directly address the question. What was the other part?
That's the main thing. Who would you rather?
Which matchup to be more fearful of, or
in general? And I think the way he's wording it, and I like the way it's worded, is If you end up playing one of these two teams in the NBA Finals, which one would you rather have seen the Suns have a chance against in the regular season to make possible adjustments before the postseason begins?
For all of the sensational things that Joel Embiid is doing this season, and he really does have a good shot at MVP, I think the Nets, I look at the roster construction that the Nets have put together, defense be damned, of course, but just in general, what they're kind of going for. And I see, if they can figure it out, and I think this echoes just what I was saying the other day, but I guess I see a better chance of them being able to figure it out on a short-term basis this year. So that's the team probably that I don't want to see.
Yeah.
Philly is less scary to me. There aren't many guys who can guard Embiid. I mean, there's not really anyone who can guard Embiid, but we also just played them, and Ayton did a pretty damn good job, in my opinion. Like, he still got his, but kind of as good as you can do. And you've got a whole bunch of big-ass dudes on the bench to throw at him. If you need Bismack to go out there for 10 minutes and use up 5 fouls, like he also did against Giannis recently, by the way, you can do that against Embiid. Harden, I mean, look, it's not going to be easy. They've got a lot of talent, but I think Brooklyn is a better optimized roster. And Philly is a really intriguing level of talent, but they don't have enough time between now and the playoffs to really figure that out or figure out how to blend well, in my opinion. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add to that because I think I generally agree. I do think it's fascinating that these teams swapped players that have had very interesting, let's say, playoff meltdowns in the past. In James Harden, who was benched in one of the biggest Rockets comebacks that they've had, and have failed to reach their overall goals throughout his time in Houston, or Ben Simmons, who famously passed out of a dunk, which is, I think, a little bit overblown in general, but his overall playoff stats for that series, were not great.
You know what the difference is, though, is that Ben Simmons could afford to pass out of a dunk if he's playing in a Brooklyn game next to KD and Kyrie.
Yeah.
If he's now the number 3 option, and this is, again, what I was just saying, you're just focusing him on drive and kick, create open threes for others. You've got loads of shooters and play great defense, and he could totally knock that role out of the park, as opposed to what Philly was asking him to do. Whereas with Philly in their current construction with James Harden, I mean, Chris Paul would play mind tricks, man. I think he would. I think Chris Paul would absolutely relish an opportunity to destroy James Harden and Jedi mind trick him to death in a final series.
Yeah,
I really think he would.
They do have Matisse, I think, which would be the best defender against Devin Booker in any finals game, although Drew Holiday is pretty amazing too. Chris Middleton does a good job. But Matisse is the best. The
best defender in any finals game, but still an iffy shooter. Like, he hit 2 threes against the Suns in the first quarter when they played last week, and it was a shock. 2 wide open corner threes.
I think it was the second time he had 2 threes in a game this season or something like that.
I think he's still hovering around 30% overall in the season. So it's like, you want to take that guy in a final series against a team that has all sorts of shooters like Phoenix, and if you want to play him 36 minutes against Devin Booker to try and neutralize Booker, be my guest. But that's the thing about Matisse, you're giving something up on the other end.
Yeah, I think those are going to be fascinating teams, and I think, Steven, we'll probably get into talking about them a little bit more once we've seen them. Both of those players, James Harden and Ben Simmons, have a lot to prove this season because they have a lot to lose. If they're both bad this season, I think that'll do major damage to their reputations overall. All right, Eugenius05, I think his @ is at Yevgeny Kogosov. Forgive me for saying that incorrectly if I did. Hypothetically, Ayton does go for a sign and trade this offseason. Thoughts on who may be a good fit for us if we trade Ayton? So he's saying hypothetically if the Suns go for a sign and trade with Ayton. So
skip. I'm hitting
he's
the
essentially
skip button.
giving up the. He's essentially given us the option to say if Ayton chooses it, which he could. And in a lot of ways, I think sign and trades are done by agents more than they are done by teams. I'm not ready for that. I think maybe we just skip that one for now. But I think it's a possibility. I do think it's a possibility.
I don't really think it's a possibility. But remind me if I'm wrong. I think your only choices here. I'm not gonna give you an answer, but I'll give you a clue that you can then go and use to find your own answer. Kind of like a build your own adventure, if you will. So if you want to go, I think the only teams that could do this who is it going to be again? It's going to be Portland, San Antonio, Detroit, and I'm missing someone. But I don't
those
have
are the teams that have cap space. Sign-in trades, you can get to a team that doesn't have cap space.
Oh, you want to get him to a team that doesn't? Yeah, like if they give back,
which is essentially opens up the entirety of the NBA.
That opens up the entire league. That's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, and that's going to be fascinating. But here's what I'll say: I don't want to rule out the idea of a sign-in trade because there were just so many people that were talking about this publicly or privately. I'll just say that about the Suns potentially priming the pump, if you will, on a potential sign-in trade this offseason. And I think a lot of what the Suns do in the offseason will be dependent on what happens in the playoffs. Because if this team is fully healthy and they fail to reach their goal again, they're probably going to shake things up a little bit. They're not going to continue to bring back the main core if they're unable to win a title. So I'm not going to say that they're going to do that, but I don't think it's the right time to talk about it because we're going to have a lot better idea of what's going to happen once we see the actual playoffs. All right, Yemi Ajibula, I believe is how you say his name. It's Prime Yems on Twitter, at Prime Yems. He said, rank these opponents from most to least wanting to see in a playoff series. These are all Western Conference opponents. Mavericks, Nuggets, Clippers, Lakers, Jazz, Grizzlies. So it's essentially every potential playoff team. The Lakers are not necessarily one outside of the Warriors. Mavericks, Nuggets, Clippers, Lakers, Jazz, Grizzlies. He does put the caveat: the Nuggets are healthy, Clippers are healthy in this scenario. If the Clippers are healthy, to me,
if the Clippers are really healthy, like what does that mean?
That's the team I want to see the least. I mean,
if the Clippers are literally fully healthy, then they are the team you want to see the least. No doubt.
I agree. Or even if it's just Kawhi, I would put them in that scenario.
Okay.
If it's just Paul George, then think they're a little less scary.
Can we agree the team you most want to see are the Mavs?
Mavericks or Jazz? I think the Jazz are sort of... Well, I mean, the Lakers. The Lakers are on this list, too.
I think the Mavs are an easier out than the Lakers. I think the Lakers are an easy... For the record, I think the Lakers are an easy out, too. But, I mean, the Mavs, what do they have, man? They have no firepower.
I mean, Luka literally had to score 45 points in the last game against the Clippers, and they still lost.
That would be easy. That would be easy. I think the Timberwolves could give you a better series than the Mavs, honestly. I really do believe that, too. So ranking from most to least, I guess Mavs, Lakers.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I'll give you the Mavericks one. I would say Lakers probably initially, but I like your thoughts there.
Assuming full health?
Yeah, so essentially we're putting the Nuggets and Clippers probably at the end of this list, right? Because the Nuggets fully healthy, I don't know. They just have so many defensive problems. Okay, I guess here's how I'll word this. Who's scarier to you between the Nuggets fully healthy, so that means both Jamal Murray,
Jazz.
Michael Porter Jr., and the Jazz and the Grizzlies? So let's put all three there.
Yeah, if the Nuggets are fully healthy, they're definitely scarier than the Grizzlies. They may or may not be scarier than the Jazz. But also, I think the Suns are a bad matchup for the Jazz. Yeah, I would probably say my full list from most to least: Mavs, Lakers, Grizzlies, Jazz, Nuggets, Clippers.
Okay. I think that the Nuggets, Jazz, and Grizzlies are like the same. I feel the same about all those. Otherwise, I'll co-sign with your list. I think that's a pretty good list there. Let's move on. This is from Matthew Kim, at Matty Keem. He said, I know we've only seen him play one game, and in a blowout one at that, but Aaron Holiday looked like Javon Carter with better ball handling to me. If Payne remains a bit inconsistent coming back from injury, could you guys see him taking over for the backup point guard spot? It seems way too early to say that for sure.
Yes, definitely premature for that. Let's focus on him taking Elf's spot first, which I think is definitely feasible. I think the main thing is so far, he's 6 feet. This is the thing about Aaron Holiday. He's 6 feet, but he's also kind of being advertised as an off-ball guard. You know what I mean?
Well, they played him at shooting guard essentially in that game.
Exactly. And he can defend. He's supposed to go out there and defend. He was there to press. He was full court pressing in that fourth quarter. And he can play make a little bit. I just don't know if I see him taking the reins.
Yeah.
Although you could argue, maybe Campaign, maybe it's not that he takes Campaign's minutes, but maybe he takes Landry Shamet's minutes.
Yeah,
is that possible? And then you almost prefer Campaign in that gunner combo guard kind of shooting guard type role.
Yeah.
Like where he goes fully Andrew Barbosa, so to speak, which I know some of our specific
Are
listeners
triggered.
out there
Yeah.
are triggered and frustrates the shit out of them, and others probably love the sound of that. So, but I will say I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're at Aaron Holiday, Monty Williams' daughter levels.
Can I read? I'm gonna read a DM from somebody.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is from Nicholas Schoolis. This is related to this question. It's not a new question. And I think this was a great point that he made, and it's possible. He said, I feel like the Suns will add Wainwright and waive Payton if it comes down to it. Barring an injury or an add on the buyout market, it doesn't make sense to have 4 healthy point guards. And he said, just wanted to put it on the record, which I told him I think that's a very interesting thing to say, because I think his point is, would the Suns rather have in a playoff matchup at this point Elfrid Payton or Ish Wainwright? Which I think is an interesting question to ask, and I thought that was an interesting way to put it. Because right now, the Suns effectively have a potential player who could play in the place of Elfrid Payton, who maybe isn't as good, and I think a lot of the words from former fans of teams that Aaron Holiday played on is that he's incredibly inconsistent, but I mean, so is Elfrid Payton. So the question is, would you rather have Aaron Holiday and Ish Wainwright available for playoff games, or Elfrid Payton and no Ish Wainwright available for playoff games? What do you think about that?
I think this team has enough forwards, man. Ish he's had flashes, but ever since, when they decided to go out and get Torrey Craig, that basically closed the door on Ish, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not that he can't play. I certainly think he can play, but I don't see it. I mean, where are you going to find him minutes?
Yeah.
Like, there have to be 3 other injuries before you find him minutes, I think. And I would rather have Elfrid.
I like
believe
that.
It or not.
If it does happen, shout out to Nick. Very, very smart basketball mind. Good guy too. Let's see. This is from Durag Hoops, our friend Durag Hoops. Let's see. He said, pick one player who can never shoot the ball again.
This is perfect.
On this current team, so on the Suns, you have to pick one player, basically eliminating his shooting, but all of their other skills, defense, passing, rebounding, positioning, and IQ take a huge jump forward. Which player would you pick? And then with their newfound skills, do they have the ability to be a starter? So he's assuming we're not going to pick a starter, first of all. But
this is why it's perfect.
Okay, well, do you have someone I would like? Because I'll just say my first thoughts are I would probably just pick a center. Is my first thoughts, because if you're just choosing a player to never shoot again and you're on team with Chris Paul, maybe you pick a center. That would make the most sense to me. But what did you think?
Well, there's an inconsistency here, or misunderstanding at least, because I interpreted never shoot again as can never attempt a field goal. They can't dunk, they can't lay up, they can't shoot. Maybe
Interesting.
I'm wrong. Maybe that's not what Durag meant. I thought Durag was talking about, could you have kind of like a thought experiment? Could there be a starting quality player in the NBA who's never allowed to shoot the basketball?
The shoot button is broken. The X button is broken. Okay.
How good of a player could you have who is not allowed to try and finish a play by scoring themselves?
Yikes.
And to that, I was going to say, let's go with the guy we were just talking about. Ish Wainwright already basically doesn't score.
I thought of him too. I mean, because he is kind of a center sometimes.
If you just said, okay, Ish, don't shoot the ball anymore, but you're kind of Draymond Green now. Maybe that's disrespectful to Draymond Green.
How about Ben Simmons?
Yeah.
Or you could turn Elfrid Payton into Ben Simmons, basically.
I mean, what's the value? Theoretically, what's the value of a guy?
It's low.
I know statistics aren't everything, but what's the value of a guy who take the prototypical athletic, drafted in the top 10 for all these intangible or tangible reasons rather. Switchable guy, great wingspan, can guard multiple positions, and then have him average 0 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists per game.
It'd never work.
What's the value of that guy?
It would never work because teams would figure it out.
Is he a top 50 player?
Teams would just figure out that you don't have to guard him. Literally, no matter what, you don't have to guard them. You could just double team whoever you want off the ball, and it just wouldn't work.
It doesn't work.
If they can't shoot at all.
Assuming
they can still dunk or something, then maybe you just do this to JaVale, who I don't like when he shoots anyway. Then everything else gets better.
If you try and double, you always double the wrong guy. That's how good his IQ is. So he gets the 10 assists anyway.
I mean, yeah, that's a fun thought experiment. But if they're literally not capable of like putting the ball towards the rim, then I think that you have a flawed player that will never be in the NBA. Let's see. Let's do one more and let's take a quick break, and then we'll try and get to as many as we can after that. This is from another friend of ours, Ridiculous Cage, at Ridiculous Cage on Twitter. Cage says, do you believe in the notion that if Booker was selected as an all-star starter, he would be more likely to receive favorable calls from the refs? This is his assertion says, since he was not selected as a starter, the refs would feel more comfortable not giving him, quote, superstar calls.
I'm currently looking up Andrew Wiggins' last 10 games game log to see where the evidence is that he's getting more free throws as of late. I don't see it. I do not see it.
I don't see it either. I here's what I'll say, too. I think Booker's actually been getting a pretty good whistle this year.
Wow. That's brave of you to say.
Who do you think gets superstar calls? Like we clearly know Giannis is, because we've talked about it before. Giannis does. LeBron James does. Does Steph Curry get superstar calls in your mind?
Is that a trick question?
No, I'm just curious because I'm not sure.
I don't know. Here's the problem. What exactly is a superstar call since the rule change? Do you know what I mean?
How about Giannis leaning
Chris
into
Paul?
a fender and jumping backwards and getting the foul?
Yeah, that's Giannis totally gets superstar calls.
Yeah.
Is the rip through is that a superstar call or is that an IQ call?
That's a foul based on the rules. Like, that's not outside of the rules. I mean, I guess you could say maybe they wouldn't call it if Aaron Holiday was out there doing it. Maybe they do if Chris Paul is.
I think Giannis gets superstar calls. I think Embiid gets superstar calls.
Embiid,
but honestly,
yes. Harden doesn't anymore, I don't think, right? He used to, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's frustrating to watch regardless still.
Yeah. It's just a
but
style.
I guess just to address Cage's question, like, no, I don't think the refs, like, I think it does matter when you're coming up in the league and the particular circumstance that you're in, the type of organization you play for, and what your growth pattern is for the first 3 or 4 seasons. All of that affects how officials see you, and I do think that has some sort of difference in the rate of fouls that they call, and maybe you could even go and experiment and prove that statistically. I think it would be a minor difference, but I do think there would be a difference. Once you are in your 4th, 5th, 6th season, I think you kind of are who you are. And unless you're really adding elements of to your game that force more contact at the rim, your foul rate's going to stay where it is, and accolades aren't going to affect that. And I think we've seen Booker's foul rate stabilize for a while, and I don't think that's going anywhere.
I think there's one counter to that, and maybe it's not necessarily because of the idea of the perception early on, but does Luka Doncic get superstar calls in your mind?
That's a really good question. So
he kind of does, right?
The funny thing is that people forget about Luka, right? Because
he's a bucket, right?
No, that's not what I'm going to say. But we were kind of just referencing this before. Luka shoots a lot of free throws. He really does.
He does.
He also, this season in particular, takes a shit ton of shots.
Yeah.
Like, he really just handles the ball more than anyone else in the NBA now.
It's absurd.
And I do think we should keep that in mind. Like, I get the temptation to be frustrated if you open a box score and you see Luka has 10, 11, 12 free throws, whatever.
He baited so many in the last 2 seasons. So many fouls.
You're right. You are right.
So that's for the frustration for some
people. As long as we're talking about ball dominant, perimeter players and Trae Young, I mean, are we saying that the rule change completely took away his superstar call?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it did affect it. I think it did, and it did for James Harden too. And I think to an extent it did for Devin Booker, and it did for Chris Paul, and it did for every player that handles the ball a lot. Because
Chris Paul's free throw numbers actually have gone up this season. He's one of the only guys.
I mean, he's remarkable in that nothing seems to affect him. But I do think that the rules just pushed all these star players into doing, at least minorly, a little bit of foul baiting, every single one of them. But I think overall, I think the point I was trying to make is there's like 5 players that get superstar calls in my mind. It's not a huge list of players that get superstar calls. on a regular basis. On any given game, somebody can, any star player, top 20 player, top 25 player could probably shoot 18 free throws in any one given game. But on a regular basis, there's like 5 or 6 guys that get superstar calls. Devin Booker's not currently one of those guys. And I don't know that any player around Devin Booker's age is one of those guys that gets superstar calls, except for maybe Luka. I think you could have made the case that he was one of those guys. I haven't watched enough this season to make that case for or against that. But what I'll say is I don't think that they care about the fan voting for the All-Star starters. I just don't think there's really a difference. Just what you said. Like, Andrew Wiggins is the guy that kind of breaks this whole theory down, because all it is fan voting. All right, let's take a quick break and get back to as many questions as we can before we get to an hour mark here. Okay, next question is from @DayW33ZY. I'm sure that's Day Wheezy, I assume. He said, what should the Suns do to make sure they come into the playoffs as fresh as possible? He's worried about burnout from extended CP3 minutes specifically. So this is a great question, and I think that this All-Star break coming up next week is coming at the right time for the Suns, being that they have multiple guards injured and players that have been in and out of the rotation recently, which has resulted in Chris Paul playing a lot of minutes. But what do you think? Is there anything the Suns can do in this last stretch of the season that could get them as healthy and fresh as possible for the playoffs?
I think we're already seeing some level of experimentation from them offensively. You noted Mikal splits earlier. That allows them to... It allows less pressure to be on their lead initiators, right? Chris Paul and Devin Booker is really who we're talking about keeping fresh. Ultimately, though, it's just a matter of minutes. Like, you can take away a couple shots from CP3 and give them to this guy or that guy, but if he's playing 38 minutes, he's playing 38 minutes. So hopefully the Aaron Holiday acquisition helps, and hopefully Campaign can get back after the All-Star break. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah. I don't know it doesn't seem like that this team is willing to rest guys. I don't think that Monty has rested anyone except for the last game of last season, right? I don't think there's been in a single time. And even Mikal checked into that game for like 30 seconds to keep his streak alive. So I'm not sure that there's any rest in this team at all. And, maybe they will as the playoffs get a little closer, assuming they secure the 1 seed. Like, the sooner they can secure the 1 seed, the better they can do as far as resting. But even that, I think this team is trying to win as many games as possible and just be on the record books as the best Suns team of all time, which I think they're right up there with, and I don't think they have to worry about that happening. But I think just getting guys healthy and try and find Cameron Payne coming back makes a huge difference. I mean, ultimately, that's really the main thing. Cameron Payne comes back, you can play him for extended stretches. As much as he frustrates some people, not me. At times he is frustrating, but I just think the team still runs pretty well when he's on the court, much better than any other backup guard that this team has played.
Agreed.
In years.
Yep.
So that's the main thing. And look, if someone can convince him to rest Chris Paul on back-to-backs or something like that, maybe if Aaron Holiday plays really well and that makes a big difference, then maybe you could get away with that, but I doubt it. All right, another friend of the pod, Cody Hunt @CO_D Hunt. How do you feel about using a 2-center lineup against teams like Milwaukee? Great question, and something we haven't covered, because there were stretches of this game with, I think Biyombo was like the power forward, right? In certain lineups, and I think it was with both JaVale and DeAndre in on the floor.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
There were. Here's why I distinctly remember it. He's talking about the Milwaukee game. There were a couple minutes of JaVale and Ayton, because I remember that possession where the Suns had no idea how to set up offensively. They had no sort of concept of offensive spacing.
Right.
And then someone did a driving kick. I can't remember who it was anymore, but they kicked it out to JaVale McGee with 4 seconds left on the shot clock, who was spotting up at like the 3-point line, at the top of the key. Yeah. And so JaVale took a dribble in, took a couple more dribbles in, put a spin move on, and hit like a ridiculous layup. And I was like, okay, fine. That's what we're doing now.
Off the backboard, yeah.
Yeah, to sort of answer Cody's question there, like I do think it's not that it's not viable defensively, especially if we're talking about a Milwaukee matchup specifically, and you have to worry about Giannis and Brook Lopez or Giannis and Serge at the same time. But the offense, I just don't see how you can run any of what you've kind of been typically running this season by doing that. You know? Like maybe it works for a few possessions here or there just to throw something at them that kind of forces them to pause. But as a real strategy, you know, like as not a gimmick, something you could actually play for a stretch of 6+ minutes at a time, I don't really know that I see it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Offensively, it didn't irk me in the way that I thought it would in that game, just because the Suns won. Like, right, that heals all wounds. There was one play early on in the season just popped into my mind where the Suns started their elbow set with DeAndre Ayton in the corner, and then it just ran into like an empty corner pick and roll with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton coming out of the corner. That's the type of things they would need to run. But even then, there would have to be another big man, and essentially in the dunker spot on the weak side of the floor. It just doesn't work. They would have to change a lot of their plays. They would just have to change a lot. They would have to utilize the dunker spot. The Suns don't use the dunker spot, really, in like almost any single play that they play. And that the dunker spot, for those who don't know, is essentially if you're looking at the basket from the front, it's like a few feet away from the right or a few feet away from the left. Close enough to catch it, maybe one dribble, but without dribbling to be able to dunk it from either side of the bucket.
It's about out to 10 feet out on either side of the basket on the baseline. I mean, the thing about playing Ayton and JaVale and Bismack together in any combination of those three is that not only are none of them shooters, really, so you're talking about two dunker spot guys, but none of them are passers either, really. Yeah. You know? Like Ayton, we've talked about in the past, he's great at catching, forcing a double in the post, and then kicking out.
The inside-out passes.
He's great at the inside-out passes. He's pretty bad at the outside-inside passes.
So far, it just hasn't worked, yeah.
So, if Ayton's going to catch at the elbow, and he's going to then, toss it in deeper to we've never seen anything like that.
Maybe he can lob stuff. We've never seen him try that. It's
we've
like
never
floater.
seen it. We've never seen. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying we've never seen it. So
the bounce passes are not there. Yeah, those won't work. Yeah, I don't know. I think if they want to do that in the postseason, they got to try it again in the regular season. And I think if we see it again in the regular season, it's probably with the intention of rolling it out against teams like Milwaukee. And it might piss people off in a regular season game, but regular season sometimes is for experimentation like that. So if it happens again, I think we'll understand why. All right, this one's from Bastion QSB. This is at SBSTNQ93. I'm guessing his name is Sebastian. He said, I'm really enjoying Ayton's offense this season with his unstoppable hook shot and some short roll playmaking. What do you think the next offensive progression he'll introduce, if any? This is actually a great question, and I'm glad he brought it up because I think we need to just talk about it more. He's been back for a while, and just what he does off the ball now is just so good. He just gets into the right spots. He uses his strength. The other thing, too, with the hook shot or with his catching the ball away from the basket in the pick and roll, there's no hesitation anymore. He's not shooting fadeaways in those scenarios. He's not spotting up from the free throw line and shooting the free throw jumper every single time he catches it there. He catches it with intention to go over the basket or to the basket or to shoot over guys and into guys instead of fading away from them, which it's just every single game. And also the floater, the touch, everything around the rim is beautiful. What do you think the next step for DeAndre Ayton is in his offense, Sam?
You're putting me in a tough spot because I don't have an obvious answer to this question. I think anyone could identify areas of Ayton's offense that remain weaknesses. The lack of aggression, right? Like a lot of this has been the thing that fans have talked about forever in terms of going for layups instead of just dunking. Maybe would lead to a higher field goal percentage if he did that sometimes. I think if you've got a guy like this by year 4 and he's not doing that, he's just never going to do it. He'll pull out a really nice, kind of poster dunk once in a blue moon, but for the most part, that's just not who he is. The passing, it would be great if he worked on. I think that's not who he is. The 3-point shooting doesn't bother me anymore. Straight up, I think he's so good close to the basket that I don't care if he never shoots threes.
I agree.
You don't need a center who shoots threes. If you've got a center who's not that good close to the basket, then yeah, it's nice if they shoot 6 or 7 threes per game at 35+%. But for the most part, 4 out spacing and one guy who's a rim runner is actually the ideal spacing in the NBA, at least in 2022. So that works out. with what
especially
Ayton's doing
if
right
they
now.
can punish the switches the way he can.
Right,
Sealing
so-
against smaller defenders under the rim.
But so I guess my question, Mike, and I guess I can turn it back on you. What does that leave us in terms of Ayton's offense to improve if we're talking about things that are feasible to improve?
Yeah.
Not things that are attitude related.
Right. I think we're back, because to me, the things that he can do better, I think we're back at the point, and this is something that I brought up in our internal development episode, where I just sort of gave up on the idea of him passing to cutters, because I think so much of the offense that people want DeAndre Ayton to get great at is based on whether or not he can hit mid-range shots on a regular basis. And here's what I mean by that. If DeAndre Ayton catches it 16 feet away from the basket, what people want him to do is to be able to attack the rim. But if players are playing off of him, right, if they're playing 5 feet off of him because they are daring him to shoot that mid-range shot, then it makes more sense for him to give up the ball to a point guard, push that guy under the rim with his strength, get the ball back once he's under the rim, shoot a hook shot right over his head. But if he can hit that shot, then a couple of things happen. One, they play up on him. If they play up on him, what that does is it gives him the ability to put the ball on the floor and get fouled like Embiid or get to the rim and shoot. If they're playing in a space where they're blocking any direction that he could potentially dribble to because they're too far off of him, then it hinders his dribbling. If they're playing close to him as well, that actually opens up cutting lanes for cutters, which makes it easier to pass the ball. If they're playing off of him, they cut off any passing lanes, makes it harder for him to pass the ball to cutters as well. So to me, at some point, if he becomes somebody who is more of a focal point in the offense in a way that you can just give him the ball and run plays around that, he has to be able to score further away from the basket because that opens up everything else for him. So at some point, we have to reintroduce the idea of him shooting more shots into the offense. If the Suns coaching staff believe that's not something he can do based on, statistics in games or statistics in practice, then okay. But I do think that in order for him to really develop to something different offensively, a lot of it is predicated on the ability to hit that jump shot further and further away from the basket.
This is not to compare the two on a talent level because Ayton is far and away better than Richaun Holmes at this point, but he needs the Richaun Holmes little push floater.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like the little 15-foot automatic push floater that
he
Richaun
started
Holmes
to get
has mastered over the past couple of years.
But
he has.
even that is
He
catching. See, that is he's even still catching it on the move though.
That's why I mentioned that shot specifically rather than the standstill mid-range because it's like I've seen Ayton take that shot on the move and hit that. So maybe if you did it twice, now can you do it 5 times? Can you do it 15 times?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something there to explore.
I'm going to just mention quickly, Jared Allen was just named an All-Star in the Eastern Conference, an injury replacement for James Harden. Jared Allen having the best season of his career. And I'll just say I think that there's a chance that the name Jared Allen is brought up when the Suns are in contract negotiations with DeAndre in this summer. Take from that what you will, but it just wouldn't surprise me if there's a leak from the Suns that essentially says the Suns would like to sign DeAndre Ayton to a Jarrett Allen-sized contract. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Surge at Surging Sun says, how are you guys doing? How are you doing, Sam? I ask you every podcast.
Yeah, I never tell the truth. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, me too.
Pretty good.
All right. At Legend Joey says, this is Joe from Charlotte. With Clay improving and Kuminga looking really good, how do you feel the Suns match up with the Warriors if both teams are healthy? Which we really haven't seen from the Warriors in a while. What do you think?
I feel pretty good about that too.
I feel less good.
For the record,
I feel less good.
Now that we're like, how many games into Clay are we this
Probably
year? Like 20,
15, yeah, 20.
Has your
maybe
opinion
less,
evolved? Has your opinion evolved on that at all?
No, I think
curious.
he's kind of
Getting
what
a
I've
check-in.
expected him to be. Just this like a flamethrower offensive player who shoots every time he touches the ball.
Yeah.
Defensively, I don't know that I've seen enough of him to make any sort of judgment as far as if he's the same type of defender he was before. I didn't see him and think he was like food, like right away. I didn't see him and say,
right.
"Oh yeah, this is different." Like like when I saw LeBron James closer to the end of last season, and I was like, this looks different. I didn't feel that way about Clay yet. So I don't
would agree
really
with that.
I don't have an
I would agree
evolved
with
opinion as far as defensively on Clay yet. But I think that they look really good so far, and Steph is taking a different role and not playing as well as far as shooting the ball, but passing the ball better now that Draymond's out. When Draymond comes back, does that help with like Steph's actual field goal percentages? Because that's like the best passer on the team, one of the best passers in the NBA. It might, and that's when it starts to get a little scarier because the defense that Draymond adds, takes that team to a whole nother level, plus the potential uptick in Steph Curry's shooting. That to me makes it very scary. I look, I'm gonna tell the truth. I wouldn't favor the Suns in that. At the very least, I would say it's a coin flip between the Suns and the Warriors right now. Even if the Suns are playing better, I just think Draymond being out makes such a huge difference as far as records go. So as far as the record, I don't care if the Suns have a better record than the Warriors right now because Draymond's been out. So yeah.
I mean, we've missed some games of Landry Shamet. But yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, Frank Kaminsky's been out the whole season.
Clay is shooting 11.2 threes per 36 minutes. The last fully healthy season he played, he was at 8.1. Like he's never been above 9.
Yeah.
And now he's at 11.2. So flamethrower is the right way to
they're
put it.
Doubling down. Yeah, they're doubling down.
He's chucking. He's setting new levels of it this year.
All right, this is from @Chad_Bauman. I might be a little behind, but is there much interest from the Suns in the buyout market? I know I heard some talks of Peyton being able to be cut to make space, but I don't know how realistic that is.
Here's the deal. If there's interest from the Suns in the buyout market, you will not hear about it before they sign someone.
It's a great point, yeah.
I think we've learned enough about how this team works at this point. Did any of us hear rumors about Aaron Holiday?
No.
Did any of us even know? None of the fucking reporters, even the ones who are supposed to be Sarver's mouthpieces or whatever, even knew that the Suns had applied for the DPE. No one knew. No one fucking knew. So I think that tells you everything you need to know. So whatever we say we've heard, also, by the way, does not matter. You shouldn't give a shit about. But I will just say, speculating, I don't think they're really interested in the buyout market. Yeah. I think this is their team.
Yeah. I do too. And I think we both mentioned that on our trade reaction podcast. I just don't think they're going to do anything. That's the main thing I feel like right now. They like continuity. They like being able to give Monty Williams players that he's fully familiar with going into battle. And that includes trading for Craig again. Augie 5000, Augie, a Redditor, friend of ours, I guess.
Long time.
Are the Clippers a dark horse? Better than the sum of their parts, well coached and pretty deep. Well coached, I think, is a great point by Augie. He also says George and Leonard have not been completely ruled out for a playoff return, and recent trades show willingness to beef up the bench. I think we're both terrified of the Clippers, right?
I think a Clipper is a type of ship, actually, Augie. I don't think it's so much of a horse, but yeah, I would say that they are. Yeah, I'm still on that boat. People gave me shit for it last year after the injuries, but I'm telling y'all. That's a scary team fully healthy.
Hey,
so
they
I don't
took
want
the
see them
Suns
fully
to.
healthy.
They went. First of all, they made the Western Conference Finals, and then they took the Suns to 6 games without Kawhi Leonard. I think you can brag about that a little bit.
Without Kawhi,
right. They were scary.
Without Kawhi Leonard, and now they've added 2 more formidable role players in Powell and Covington.
Yeah.
Not that those are like difference makers unless Kawhi plays, but if Kawhi plays, they could be difference makers. So yeah, they're good. I mean,
the top 5
they could
coach.
be good.
In my opinion, Ty Lue's a top 5 coach. So all those things combined, I think, makes for a very, very, very scary playoff opponent. I think, you're hoping for a team that's not fully put together because of their inability to play together this whole season because of health. At that point, if you're any team playing the Clippers, not just the Suns, but the Suns could be matched up against the Clippers in the first round, depending on how things go. It's going to be a fascinating thing to see as far as what they. Yeah, but I'll just say, yeah, they are a dark horse contender if they're fully healthy. Because that's a terrifying team. Or like I said to you earlier, Sam, if it's just Kawhi and not Paul George, even just Kawhi, I think makes them a dark horse.
How about this? Since we're talking about fully healthy and we mentioned this other team earlier, do you feel the same way about the Nuggets?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Or do you kind of just feel like, I mean, yeah, the Nuggets are really good if they're fully healthy, but they're still pretenders,
Is it because, okay, first of all, they have one All-Star technically, right? The Nuggets, and that's an MVP in Nikola Jokic. And then they have Jamal Murray. Now you can say that Jamal Murray is not an All-Star, but yeah, he's an All-Star level talent. Michael Porter Jr. is a flawed player, though. He's
Totally.
a flawed player. He's a player who's not great at moving his feet, is a bad defender, and has, I would say, does
But
not
you know
always
what?
make the smartest decisions on the basketball court.
You know what? You're 100% right. Is every other contending team capable of taking advantage of Michael? Like, if they got the right matchups,
Yeah.
is every other team capable of targeting Michael Porter Jr. systematically the way the Suns did in the second round? Or was that just a really bad matchup for Denver?
Well, I think, okay, I'll say this. I think the Warriors can. I think the Clippers can. And I think the Suns can. And you know what? Maybe the Mavs can.
Wow.
With Luka. They might be able to do that too, because how do you hide him? So I think, okay, but here's
Bertans has given up his fair share of buckets on the other end.
I don't know what they're going to do with him, but anyway, I don't know. That's a fascinating question to think about. But yeah, it's interesting. I have to see it. I think I have to see that team first if they're going to be fully healthy, and maybe we won't get much of that. And that's part of their struggle, is that if they do come back, maybe they come back a month before the postseason begins, and then, you know, as much chemistry as they've built throughout the season, now you're throwing other guys into there. Guys that have played with Jokic before, but we'll see what that turns into. Jamal Murray makes a big difference, though. Jamal Murray makes a huge difference. And Michael Porter Jr. is a great shooter. The question is, can he stay on the court effectively in a playoff game, especially after being injured for so long? So we'll see. Yeah, I guess I'll say this. I don't feel the same way about the Nuggets. I think there's too many questions, but they still could be a contender.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. John Hayek says best music released in 2022 so far. I this is like the type of question where I did no research for any of these Suns questions. This is the type of question where I would need to do research.
Have you listened to anything this year?
The band that I discovered recently was called Wet Leg. They're called Wet Leg. They're from England.
Told me about them. Yeah, you did. You tweeted about them, right?
I tweeted about them. They're from England. They're like this sort of like proto punk, like new style punk band of. It's two women. They both play guitar and they write like these sort of almost like sarcastic style punk songs that are like kind of like Strokes influenced, if you will. But the singing is sort of like this apathetic talk singing. It's really enjoyable, and I've really enjoyed it. I have no idea when it was released. I know it's within the last few months. It's not a very old album, but it might have been the end of 2021. But that was a band that I love. They have one song called Shay's Lounge, and they have another song called Wet Dream, and they're both fantastic. You should, if you want to check out that band.
I will check them out. I have a recommendation.
It's fun music, is what I'll say.
I have a recommendation that I've tweeted about. I haven't listened. I listen to a ton of music typically. I haven't been able to quite as much as I wanted to in the past month and a half, but I have a recommendation that I feel like is tailor-made for you, and I definitely tweeted about these guys.
Yes.
The new album, they have been jerked off on the internet, so excuse me if you hang around a little bit too much on, pitchfork.com or the types, but Jesus Christ, why am I blanking on the name all of a sudden? Black Country New Road. Yep, there we go. Black Country New Road, also an English rock band. The Brits tend to do that style of music pretty well. I have to say, legitimately, I was a big fan of their debut album that came out last year. They are kind of post-punk in name, at least originally that was the idea. This new album, I would say, is more in the style of like Arcade Fire meets Godspeed You Black Emperor, which is a really kind of interesting sort of thing they've got going on. And yeah, it's just really fucking fantastic. I just think, rock music was my first love. And now, in these days in 2022, there's all sorts of other music that I've just accepted as time has gone on are just more popular and stuff that gets a lot more play and frankly is a lot more interesting. I think it's really, really hard to write fresh sounding rock music in 2022. So hats off to any band that can do it. And I think this band did it. So yeah. I know I recommended them to some people on Twitter who saw it at some point. I would recommend it definitely to you, Mike.
Yeah,
as such a big like Arcade Fire fan and stuff.
Yeah, you showed me their last album too, and I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. I told you it reminded me of Lou Reed, which is
you did tell me that. Yeah. I forgot about that.
And if you like Lou Reed, I love Lou Reed, so it was a compliment. But yeah, I think some of the things you said about them is similar to how I feel about Wet Leg, where it feels like I do feel like there is going to be, and I won't spend too long on this. I'm sorry for people who don't give a shit, but I do think there's going to be a surge of new, younger bands that play in like actual bands, just as a push against the level of overproduction that has existed in music for the last 15, 20 years at this point. I think, and I think they're going to be sort of punk influenced, or even to an extent emo influenced, because a lot of young people tend to like emo music for whatever reason. But I don't know.
For whatever reason.
I don't like it. Yeah.
I mean,
I liked
you
British,
can see why. Though.
I liked British music, British rock bands in the same era that the American rock bands were making emo music. I liked a lot of British rock bands. So I don't know, Franz Ferdinand and the Hives and the Vines and stuff like that. Garage rock. Yeah. Anyway, how many sons? This is from @ShamitDenier. I should have read that before reading it out loud. How many sons will be on all NBA teams, and will Monty Williams win Coach of the Year? We don't do predictions on this podcast, but so I'm not going to say for sure if he'll win Coach of the Year or not. I think he's got a great chance. Chris Paul is going to make an all NBA team, right?
Yeah, I think they.
And Devin Booker.
I mean, will both of them make it?
I think
both of them should make it. Will both of them make it?
The Suns are going to win like 65 games, maybe more. I'd be shocked if they both weren't on it. Do you think anyone else has a chance, though?
For
all NBA?
Yeah, well, yeah, dude, because there's only 6 guard spots.
No, I'm sorry. Any other Suns players?
Oh, no.
Yeah, right. I don't really think, because who could it be? No. Mikal Bridges, I think, would be the only. He's going to play every game.
No shot. I love Mikal, but no shot. And for center, for the all NBA teams, remember, it has to be an actual center.
Yeah.
And you've got Embiid
and
Jokic. Embiid, Jokic, probably. Cat and Gobert before you.
Cat and Gobert, and Jared Allen just named an All-Star.
Yeah.
So like that's another guy that's ahead of Ayton probably at this point.
It's tough.
Yeah,
tough.
@Don's Bread said, "How excited are you guys to have Jason Momoa?" He said Mimosa, but I think he meant Momoa. Join the Fast and Furious cinematic universe.
I had no idea. He had joined.
Yeah, I think it was funny because I think Vince, what's his name? No, Vin Diesel. Like publicly asked The Rock to rejoin the Fast and Furious universe, and The Rock said no. And then they're like, "Fine, we'll just put Jason Momoa in." Yeah. And look, The Rock's a bad actor, but he was perfect for
Vin
those
Diesel
movies,
is a worse actor.
They're all bad. Like the fun thing about those movies is bad actors being incredibly serious.
Okay, The Rock is a significantly better actor than Vin Diesel.
I don't know. Like, have you seen Jungle Cruise?
I'll admit I have not, but I still really believe by many more orders of magnitude, dude.
No, you're probably right. Yeah, Vin Diesel's terrible. You're probably right. But Jason Momoa, I didn't really care much for him or what he's done, but he was really great in Dune for the short period of time he was in Dune.
He was solid in Dune, yeah.
So, yeah, I am excited, I guess I'll say. After Dune, I am excited. Let's see. I'm going to skip this one because it's similar to a previous question. All right, this is probably, what are we? We're close to the ending here.
I've got a fun question I want to throw out at some point, too.
All right, this is from Nathan Bishi, who is a longtime listener. He said, "What's your favorite memory from doing the podcast?" So this is one for us.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have one?
It was fun when we went to 3 games together and we won every single game. The Suns won every game.
Meeting you was cool.
Having Kevin O'Connor on the podcast was like a big moment for us. I think coming up soon, for those who don't know, JJ Redick's going to be on our podcast, hopefully, if it all happens and goes well. A week and a half from now, probably.
We wanted to keep that a secret, but JJ himself could not let it go one more day without the world knowing.
Because people were harassing him. But I think that's going to be a huge, huge moment for me personally, and you, of course, as well. But for me, I'll just speak to my own experiences. I've been watching JJ Redick since he was in college and have been a fan of him in the NBA for a very long time. And I think he's the best analyst working in the NBA currently. So the combination of a former NBA player who's played at a really high level for a very long time, who I've watched since he was in college, who's the best analyst in basketball, coming onto our podcast, that's like a dream come true. So hopefully it actually happens. But anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I'm thinking of we had a good run, man. I'm talking like it's gonna fucking end anytime soon. Like, don't ask us questions like this. It's been pretty good so far, I think.
Yeah. Okay, let me say one more, and then if you have any that I've missed, I just want to add Rice.
I got one more.
This is our friend Rice. This team has addressed previous flaws against the Bucks and the Nets, but we still have 2 matchups to look forward to on March 30th versus the Warriors and April 1st versus the Grizzlies. Monty tends to try things out in marquee matchups. What wrenches do you expect him to throw in? So, Bismack and JaVale.
Catch him off guard. I was just gonna make that joke
against the Warriors.
They'll never see it coming.
No, because it's terrible.
Do you have a serious answer? I'm not sure I have a serious answer at this point.
I'd have to go back and watch those Warriors games again to really think about it.
I kind of do want to go back and watch those Warriors games again. I don't think there's a wrench you need to throw into a Memphis matchup.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think, your game plan's your game plan.
Yeah, I think they could have done a better job in transition against the Grizzlies. That's like a big thing, but I think it's really difficult to game plan against somebody like Ja, who's as athletic as he is. I mean, you could throw extra guys at him, but they have the shooting around him to make that difference.
Yeah, what's Monty going to talk about? He's going to talk about early offense.
Yeah,
and poise.
Early offense, poise.
Let's keep
our
poise.
I think aggression and I think rebounding is going to be actually Torrey Craig makes a difference against both those teams. So Torrey Craig could be one of the differences. Obviously, he didn't play in any of those matchups before. We haven't really seen Craig on the Suns against the Warriors. That could be a huge difference maker against that team. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I don't know. Outside that, I think I would need more time. That's a great question. Maybe one that we can address on a future podcast. What do you got? What else do you got before we end this one?
I got one question here, which is not Suns related, but I just thought was interesting from @LittleBougie. Lil Bougie. How do you recommend learning more about basketball in order to actually be able to analyze the game effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I thought this was interesting because I think something I have to remind myself of, and I do kind of want to let you go first, so I'll just say this really quickly, but something I have to remind myself of is that we are constantly gaining new audience members. Like, it's not just people who've been following us for 4 years, although sometimes it feels that way in my head. And what's the best way, not just for us, but as any member of the basketball content creating community can effectively bring people into the space and make it a tight-knit and better community rather than kind of, I'll just be honest,
gatekeeping. Yeah,
because it feels like there's a lot of gatekeeping in this community, and I think that's unfortunate. But do you have an initial thought to this question?
Yeah, you know what? That does happen accidentally sometimes too, and I'll just say from our experience, because we tried when we started this podcast, Sam. We always had the intention of having a podcast that anyone could listen to, ideally. But it's hard sometimes because when you start talking about the playoffs and then you get into really complicated analysis against specific teams, then you start using this sort of the words that maybe people don't fully grasp. And, that happened to me too when I listened to old podcasts, and I just eventually started looking up words that somebody like Zach Lowe was using on podcasts and looking them up on YouTube and finding a coach who's explaining it in a coaching video or something like that.
Something that I've thought about a lot actually is kind of related to this, because I think everyone in our community kind of underestimates. We bitch all the time about, the national media, they only want to cover this, they only want to cover that. I think we kind of underestimate the extent to which it's still a niche community out there, but to which, I don't know, to quote the late, great Mac Miller, I guess, it ain't 2009 no more, Like in 2022, the internet digital basketball community, the space, is so much different than it was 15 years ago. Yeah. And there are all of these different ways to learn about the terminology. But to someone who's new to it, it can be really intimidating, and it can be really daunting to try and broach that space. So I think everyone has to get better about including people into it. And one of the biggest hangups, I think, for people, just to speak to my own personal experience, like 5 years ago, before we started this podcast, I had already watched a lot of basketball in my life. I didn't have a formal basketball, like I wasn't a high level player, right? So I could understand the way that players were moving around the court and what the general objectives of an offensive set was, but I couldn't literally tell you this is a floppy, this is an elbow, this is a hawk set, right? All of that stuff came later, and I think one of the most intimidating things to people is the terminology, when it absolutely shouldn't be. The terminology is not that important,
Right.
And B, not that complicated.
And
I
also
think the more
different teams use different terms for the same actions.
Here's
so
a
it's
perfect
not even
example.
like it's not even universal.
Here's a perfect example of that, Mike. The guy who invented the term Spain pick and roll, which is now a roughly speaking ubiquitous term that everyone uses online, except for NBA coaches. NBA coaches still refer to that action that the Suns run all the time, where the back screener comes and pops out for the three, or a whole, bunch of other options. They still refer to that as stack. Online, this one guy wrote about something that he dubbed a Spain pick and roll about 6 or 7 years ago. And the only reason he did that is because at the time he happened to be watching a lot of film of the Spanish national team playing in their FIBA games, playing in the Olympics. It's not that the Spanish national team invented this play. In fact, if you go back, you can find examples of this play being run in the NBA, albeit rarely. You can find examples of this play being run in the NBA 25, 30 years ago.
In the late 80s, 90s. Yeah.
This one guy wrote about what he decided to call a Spain pick and roll. It took off, and now everyone calls it a Spain pick and roll. I think that demonstrates the terminology. Don't sweat it. Like it's really not that important. You will learn it slowly, and it's not that complicated the more you learn.
Yeah.
But I think there could be much better resources online of just trying to bring people in and say, hey, basically exactly what I'm saying right now. Like, hey, this terminology, it's just to put a name to this concept. It doesn't fucking matter if you call this shit the Spain pick and roll or the Spanish Inquisition. It doesn't matter as long as it has some name that people remember it by. So it's just about bringing people in and I mean, striving not to gatekeep as much as possible. But you know what I think the unfortunate thing is I think the gatekeeping comes from the lack of scarcity that people feel in the industry. I really just, it has to be that.
Right.
It just has
They
to.
benefit from people not knowing as much as them in some ways.
Because, yes, because people understand that there are people vouching, or there are people vying for a certain number of industry jobs, which are few and far between. Yeah. And then there are people vying for analyst jobs outside of the league, just national NBA analyst jobs, which there are only a certain number of. And there's only a certain amount of analysis that can be done before it becomes redundant, right? So to a certain class of people, I do think gatekeeping suits them.
Yeah, you're probably right.
We can be a lot better. We can be a lot better than that, I think.
Well, yes.
And above all, I guess the last thing I'll say here, as you can tell, I have thought about this a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about it too, you and I.
The audience is there. It's not the 2010s anymore.
Well, you know what? Let me just rant about something else too.
It's not this totally niche thing anymore. If you want the people who want to learn that sort of stuff about the NBA, they're out there. You just need to make it easier for them. I'll let you rant now.
It doesn't help that certain announcers would rather spend half the game complaining about the way modern teams play
You're right.
instead of explaining it. Explaining why they're playing the way they are. That's the I'm watching football recently because the playoffs are happening and just marveling at the extent to which the announcers, the analysts, the people in the second chair, if you will, are explaining the game to viewers and trying to help them to understand why certain decisions are being made on a play-to-play basis. And there's more time to do that, truthfully, in football, just the way the TV is set up. But, that type of thing doesn't help. But let me just say this. Step one, if you're an absolute amateur, and even for people beyond amateurs who are just watching basketball and trying to learn, one, don't watch the ball. That when you're watching, watch a lot of basketball, but don't watch the ball. Watch things that are happening away from the ball. And your eye is trained to stare at the little orange thing around the court at all times. You start watching what the other players are doing, and then you start to appreciate what people who aren't touching the ball bring to teams. And two, for people who listen to us, when we say stuff online, Twitter in particular, if we're using a word that you don't know or you want to know about, just ask us. Because I like being able to explain what I mean when I'm talking about stuff, and I'm using a word. If it makes you feel like you're being excluded from the conversation at all, just ask, and we can actually expand on that. And I think for us, Sam, and we've talked about this before, I'd like to at some point do a terminology series of YouTube videos that explain certain terminology that you and I commonly use on our podcast, so that we can point people back to it when we use those terms in the future. I know somebody asked, when are we going to do, one of the questions that was asked was, when are we going to do more YouTube breakdowns? Truthfully, it's been hard this season in particular because we're doing 2 podcasts a week. And then when we added playback in, that's another 3-hour commitment every week. Both Sam and I still have jobs. In fact, I'll say it right now. If you do video editing, we're considering adding another person to the team here to help us to do YouTube videos at some point. So if you're a video editor that's interested in helping us out, hit us up. That's something that we might actually add in so that we have more capabilities of doing more. Because truthfully, we'd like to do more YouTube videos. It's just been hard for us. But maybe at some point in the future, we can bring some more terminology to you guys and help explain it better.
There's only so much time in the week for watching all the games, doing multiple podcasts, and having 2 full-time jobs at the end of the day. So, I do legitimately enjoy the video editing aspect of what we've done, and I'm very proud of some of the videos we've put on the YouTube channel in the past, and I will continue to make them. It's just they're going to come at the rate that they come, unfortunately.
I think, and truthfully, YouTube, if you're trying to find more stuff, YouTube is my favorite resource to learn about basketball because visual learning when it comes to basketball is more valuable. I don't listen to as many basketball podcasts as a lot of people do, but I read everything, and I do watch a lot of basketball YouTube videos from coaches and other smart people on the internet. So those are things I recommend. But yeah, that's all we got. I know we are trying to keep this one to just over an hour. We probably could go for another hour, but we'll try to end this one now and come back to you guys with a midweek episode on our Patreon. If you'd like more content from us, another extra episode every week, patreon.com/thetimeline. We also do watch parties for games that we have 2 more this month that you could find that schedule online as well. Thank you guys very much for listening, and thank you so much for giving us all those great questions on Twitter. We appreciate you guys, and we'll be back very soon.